Not so familiar with the crowd. I know a few people here. I'm just wondering, just so I know what to speak about, is everybody generally like a regular here? Like you come often, or is there anybody new for the first time here? Or maybe for the first 5 times, come less than 5 times? So everybody's basically has like a little bit basic understanding of the philosophy. So that's good. Um, so what I would like to speak upon is how a lot of the times we judge things based on a very shallow perspective. Obviously, we have our senses. We have our sense of sight, hearing, taste, touch, etc. We have our working senses. Bhagavad Gita describes we have working senses, and we have the arms and the genitals and the legs. These are all working senses. Then we have the knowledge acquiring senses that I already mentioned, like sight, hearing, etc. So when the living entity comes into this material world, we're covered by this layer of senses, these material senses. And the human form of life is special because we have the intelligence to inquire about the absolute truth. You know, you don't hear dogs speaking philosophy or talking about science. It's because humans have a special intelligence to do so. So the Bhagavad Gita explains, Bhagavad Gita everybody's familiar with, I'm sure, because you've been coming for a while, is spoken by Krishna 5,000 years ago. And he explains very analytically how the conditioned soul is functioning through the senses, how we're in this material world, but he calls in the 13th chapter, the soul is the Shrecha Gya. That's a Sanskrit word. Gya means the knower, or Gyan in Sanskrit means knowledge or the knower. And Kshetra means the field of activities in this particular circumstance. So the 13th chapter, Krishna refers to the living entity as the Kshetra Gya. So the body is known as the Kshetra, the field of activities. The Gya, the knower of the field of activities, is the soul, which is who we truly are. We're actually a soul. It's not that we have a soul. We are a soul, but we have a material body. And there's nothing worse that the soul can do than to obtain a material body. Is that a shocking thing? So the fact that we actually have this body, a physical body and a gross body, a subtle body made of mind, intelligence, and false ego, is actually, in one sense, the dumbest thing that we could have done in our existence. So right now we are in this position. We're in a material world. We have a material body. We have a false ego, a contaminated mind, and the soul is covered by these things. And in Sanskrit, the false ego is literally called ahankara. It means that the soul is bewildered and is identifying with material elements. And we identify with these senses. We identify with this mind. And we try to seek happiness through what we identify with. The living entity by nature is a pleasure-seeking entity. So if we're identifying with the senses and the mind and the intelligence and false ego, then naturally we're going to seek pleasure out of those things. It's just natural. It's by default. You can't help it. So that's what we think happiness is. We try to enjoy the senses and the subtle senses also as well. But what we offer at the Hare Krishna movement in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is something that goes beyond the surface. And like I started this talk by explaining how I would like to talk about how we see things from a shallow perspective and we understand reality from the surface point of view. And you could see, like, for example, like the ocean. If someone's on a boat, they don't have any knowledge of what's underneath the surface of the water. People can explain what they see. You know, maybe they saw a couple birds. Maybe they even saw some jumping fish jump out of the water. They saw waves. They saw the sun reflection on the water, etc. But they have no idea that underneath the surface, there's a whole nother reality going on. there is billions of living entities going on, living under there. There's whole ecosystems, very complex ecosystems that are underneath the surface of the water. So in the same way, the living entity that's conditioned by a material body, we are just seeing the external elements, and we have no understanding of the transcendental realm that's actually existing right here, right now. And the process of bhakti yoga is offering a glimpse, not only a glimpse, a full experience of that transcendental realm. And in the beginning stages, because we are so much contaminated in identifying ourselves with the material elements for so many lifetimes, it takes a lot of practice, patience, determination, enthusiasm to get some glimpses here and there. But when we read the ancient teachings from enlightened beings who are actually experiencing the full spectrum of the transcendental realm, we can actually dive deeper into that reality. Just like Atula Govinda Prabhu was leading Kirtan. So from a materialistic perspective, it's just music. We're playing drums and a harmonium and using you could say a material voice to project material sound vibration from a materialistic point of view. But the transcendentalist with further insight who goes beyond the surface level has a much deeper experience than just having a good time playing music. They can experience something higher. And like I said, it does take practice. It's not a cheap thing. Our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, would often criticize this class of practitioners, you can say. They're called sahajiyas, people who take things the transcendental knowledge very cheaply. They may meditate and they may act like they're very advanced. They may start crying because they act like they're having a spiritual experience. But this is a cheap kind of, it's just acting basically. So if someone really wants to experience the transcendental realm, it does take practice. It does take determination. And the main thing that is recommended in this age is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is elaborated upon by many great spiritual teachers for thousands of years. Even an incarnation of Krishna himself, Lord Chaitanya, came to explain that one can experience the spiritual realm in the full spectrum just by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but it also requires proper knowledge and proper intelligence, proper jnana, like I said, the kshetrajna. So the soul is the knower of the field of activities, and the soul has to be fixed in intelligence. See, the Bhagavad Gita explains how there's different degrees, that the soul is the most important aspect of our being. We are the soul. We do have conditionings. We have the intelligence, which is higher than the mind. No, the intelligence. Then it's how's it go? No, it's the soul connected through the false ego, which identifies with the intelligence, the mind, and then we have the gross body, the senses that we're seeing with our physical eyes. But it's recommended, and it's actually very necessary, that the aspiring transcendentalist is fixed in intelligence. And the way we become fixed as intelligence is by hearing the words of the Supreme Personality, Godhead himself, and his pure devotees that are actually coming from the spiritual realm. Saying like native Indian culture, we have like shamans, and shamans are people that can like connect with celestial beings or higher beings on some higher realm, and they are able to communicate with them and then come back and speak their message to others. So we actually have something a little bit similar, a similar idea. We have something called Nitya Siddhas. They're eternally liberated spiritual beings that exist in a spiritual existence for all of eternity. But sometimes they come into this third dimensional realm, into this material world, to give proper knowledge, to give enlightenment, and to guide the conditioned souls back to their eternal home. the spiritual realm. And they give they give roadmaps in the form of scripture, in the form of shastra. Shastra, there's two definitions for the word shastra. Shastra can mean scripture, and shastra can mean a sword. So it's actually the same thing. What the scriptures, the spiritual yoga scriptures do is they cut our illusions, and they cut our false egos, and they cut all our misconceptions about reality and the means to attain self-realization. That's what the Shastra is. So these Nitya Siddhas, they come into this third dimension to give us these Shastras as a roadmap to help us come out of this dark forest of ignorance, this material existence. And like I said earlier, if we do not think that we're in the dark forest of ignorance, just the fact that we have a material body is proof. Like sometimes I'm trying to give out books to people and they say, no, I'm good. And I'm thinking, like, you have a material body. You don't have a spiritual master. You don't know that you're not good, unfortunately. And that's what ignorance is. They're people that are conditioned souls who have no aspiration for transcendence. They're actually blind. And the Bhagavatam actually explains this. The blind lead the blind into a ditch. We have blind leaders, and government leaders that are foolish and ignorant, and they're leading people in the general mass population with them. The blind are leading the blind. Ultimately, they all fall into a ditch. But fortunately for human civilization, there's not only blind leaders. We also have fully self-realized, enlightened leaders. They may not be as popular and as famous, but their teachings are available. And what's really amazing is Krishna is within every single atom. That's amazing. We say it all the time, we hear it all the time, but if you actually just contemplate it, there's no reason that we can't become Krishna conscious at every moment if Krishna is within every atom, right? And Krishna is within our heart as the super soul. And one of the duties, well, obviously Krishna doesn't have a duty, but one of his functions as the super soul is he's trying to guide every single soul to the path back home, back to Godhead. Every single soul. So when you see people, all of us today, or just people outside driving, whatever they're going through in their life, Krishna is actually guiding them to help them realize that they need to wake up. And it may take many lifetimes for most people. We don't know how many lifetimes it took for us to actually come to this stage that we're at now, that we're actually practicing bhakti yoga to some degree. It may have taken thousands of lifetimes of the super soul just giving us exactly what we need, the medicine that we need, and we weren't able to take it in the full capacity. We weren't able to take the full dose maybe 1,000 lifetimes ago. But, he gave us some suffering. He gave us some obstacles. He gave us some nice realizations. And it ultimately led us to where we are now. So that's what the super soul is doing for every living entity. And the super soul is directing these nitya siddhas, these, like I mentioned, these pure liberated, self-realized souls to come to establish these ancient teachings to help guide the living entity. The super soul and the pure souls are all working together. The pure souls are coming here to write these books. They're coming here to give the teachings, and the super soul is directing each jiva to come in contact with these teachings in some way or another. And ultimately, the essence of the teachings, Lord Chaitanya says, Cheto Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagminir Varpanam. This Sankirtan movement, this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is the essence of all transcendental knowledge. That's what Lord Chaitanya says. The Maha Mantra is considered like an alarm clock. Like I mentioned, the jiva is blind. We're sleeping in ignorance. And when we're sleeping, the alarm clock goes off and it wakes up. And most of the time we hit snooze because we want to sleep more. So that's what the Maha Mantra is doing. It's waking up the sleeping soul. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a great spiritual master in our movement, he wrote a song, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. Wake up, sleeping soul, wake up, sleeping soul. So when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, it's an alarm clock. And a lot of the times we're not attentive. We don't want to hear the mantra. The mind is going everywhere. That's us hitting snooze. We don't want to wake up. We'll put it off later. We'll wake up later, hit snooze a few more times, So we want to sleep. We're habituated to sleep in ignorance in these material bodies. That's why it's important to be fixed in intelligence. I'll bring it back to that point. The Bhagavad Gita explains that the soul who's fixed in intelligence knows what's proper and what's improper from the self-realization point of view. Activities that will help me go forward in my transcendental realization and in my practice, and things to avoid that will set me back. So obviously, if someone wants to, for example, meditate very peacefully, you could say, just for this example, a silent meditation. Watching television and eating chips at the same time of you're meditating, obviously those three things don't go good together. You're going to be distracted. So in the same way with bhakti yoga, there are some things we avoid because it doesn't help our transcendental realization. For example, that's why we're vegetarian. That's why we stay away from intoxications, etc. We stay away as far as possible from materialistic activities, not because we're just like blindly fanatic and we're just somehow just indoctrinated in these beliefs or something like that, but we're using our proper intelligence that we actually want to become self-realized, and these specific activities are not going to help me achieve that. Therefore, I'm going to avoid them. And the thing is in the beginning, we have to use our intelligence to avoid these activities. But as Bhakti Yoga practitioner continues, he actually purifies his consciousness in such a way where he doesn't want to perform these activities anymore. They become uninteresting. They become boring, actually. And Bhagavad Gita explains, Param Drishva Nivartate. Krishna explains that the higher taste one can develop is a spiritual taste, a spiritual realization. And that is so much more blissful than just mundane sense gratification. And an example I like to give is, if you only had experience, your only experience of food was dry, stale toast, like from the trash can. You didn't have any concept of food other than that for 20 years. That's all you ate. That's all you knew. You never knew anything else existed. And then someone came along with like a fresh, hot, nice pizza with amazing cheese and pineapple and all this awesome stuff on it. And you eat that for the first time. It's like so amazing, right? You're going to be in bliss. You'll be floating in ecstasy. And then someone comes along and brings that stale, disgusting bread again. You may even have a little bit of mold on it. Which one are you going to choose? Obviously, any sane person is going to go for the pizza, right? So spiritual realization is the same thing. Krishna consciousness is so blissful. As you go on, you get more of a taste and more of a taste, and you want more of it and you want more of it, where you become uninterested in material activities. It's a practical process that anybody can apply to their life and gain direct relaxation. This is what Krishna says, Pratyaksha Vaganam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Abhigyam. Pratyaksha means direct realization. It's not something that you just read from a book or you heard from somebody else. You actually have direct realization of it. Pratyaksha Pratyaksha Amadamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Abhigyam. And it's joyfully performed. It's not, you don't have to force yourself to perform devotional service. It's ecstatic and it's enlivening and it's blissful. But in the beginning stages, because we are conditioned, sometimes it does take some force. And Prabhupada actually explains that in a commentary. He explains that even if the mind doesn't want to, if you're fixed in intelligence, you're fixed in knowledge, you understand this is good for me. I know that this is purifying my heart. This is purifying my consciousness. And I'm taking it as a medicine. People who are diseased may not want to take the medicine. It tastes bad, right? It's disgusting. But if you know you're diseased and the doctor who is fixed in knowledge of this science of how to get free from your disease, he says, take this medicine every day, follow this diet, even if you don't want to, but you do it, it's for sure you are going to get healed. That sickness is going to go away. So in the beginning stages, it may take some intellectual understanding that, okay, I'm struggling chanting. It's very hard. My mind's going everywhere. My meditation on my japa is not very good. I don't have really a taste in reading Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't really want to go to the temple today because it's early and I just want to sleep in. But with proper intelligence, I'm going to do it anyways because it's the medicine I need to take. And Rupa Goswami, who is a pure devotee, one of those enlightened beings that I mentioned, a Nitya Siddha in the spiritual world, he comes down as one of the foremost disciples of Lord Chaitanya, one of the most recent incarnations of Krishna. And he wrote a book called Upadesh Amrita, which translates into English, the nectar of instruction. Upadesh means instruction. Upadesh Amrita. Amrita means nectar. So it's the nectar of instruction. It's the most ecstatic instructions one can follow. And he actually says in that book that the holy names of Krishna, this Harinam Sankirtan, may taste bitter to the conditioned soul. He gives an analogy. Just like someone with a jaundice. I've never had jaundice, but I've read the book. So I trust that people with jaundice, if they eat sugar candy, it tastes bitter to them. It doesn't taste sweet. It tastes nasty. But actually, the cure for jaundice is actually if you eat sugar candy for some reason. I guess that's scientifically proven. But he explains that the cure for jaundice is this sugar candy. But if you eat it while you have jaundice, it tastes bitter. But the only cure is if you keep taking it as a medicine. And gradually, it goes from bitter, really bitter, to a little less bitter, to a little less, and then it becomes a little bit more sweet. Then it becomes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. And then it was just sweet sugar candy and your jaundice goes away. So he's giving that analogy as a conditioned soul. We're trying to chant the holy names, but it tastes bitter to our mind. Our false ego doesn't want to hear it. Our false ego wants to stay here in this material realm. What about all that material happiness that I thought was out there? What about all those amazing opportunities of sense gratification my mind makes up? That Krishna actually explains how the conditioned soul is bound by an endless network of illusions in the form of imagining so-called happiness in this material realm. And we all have experience. I'm like preaching to the choir here because we're all practicing. We all know that any happiness out there is very temporary. Like I was happy when I went to Disneyland when I was 6 years old. But where's that experience now? It doesn't exist. It's an illusion. Yeah, okay, it happened, but it was like a dream. It was there for a few hours, but now it doesn't exist. Now it's just in my memory. Memory is part of my intelligence, part of my mind. So that experience is just a part of my mind. It's factually a mental concoction. It has nothing to do with reality. So that's what material happiness is. The conditioned soul thinks that that's what's going to bring me happy. The false ego thinks that that's what I need to go for. And so the false ego will give you opposition when you're trying to attain self-realization. It's almost like going up a stream. The river's going downhill and you're trying to climb up the river. The rocks are slippery, the water pressure is heavy, and you're just like trying to go upstream. It's a struggle at first, but once you get past the mountain, it gets a little bit easier, and then you come to a little pond area that's like just chilling. So in the same way, at first in the beginning stages, that's what the sadhaka is experiencing, where we're struggling upstream, but you just got to keep fighting. But the main thing is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and being fixed in intelligence. And that's why we have this transcendental knowledge. And that's what that is right there. That's the Srimad Bhagavatam. 12 cantos divided into 18 books. And who here has read the whole Bhagavatam? Anybody else? Yes? No? Who has heard of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Maybe read the first canto? Yes? Who has a Srimad Bhagavatam set? Wait, better. Who doesn't have a Srimad Bhagavatam set? Okay, quite a few. Okay. So this is actually the most amazing book in the universe. And I'm not just trying to like be weird or fanatic or trying to like sell you a set or something like that. Pratyakshavanagam damyam. You can actually experience it yourself by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's completely changed my life. The first canto explains that Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatya Shivayaragyam Gyanachayarahuitakam. That by just performing devotional service, one can realize the absolute truth. And that may sound astonishing, but again, brings me back to my original point that the materialistic point of view is we see things from a shallow perspective, from the surface level. But if we go deeper, there's more realization. So Krishna is actually a person. There's nothing impersonal. Everything's personal. The Srimad Bhagavatam is an incarnation of Krishna, written by an incarnation of Krishna, Srila Vyasadeva. So an incarnation of Krishna wrote down an incarnation of Krishna to teach the conditioned souls how to understand Krishna. That's pretty cool, right? So the Bhagavatam, the quote that I just, the verse that I just quoted, explains that it's not material, it's not by material intellect that you understand these books. That has nothing to do with it. There's actually mundane scholars that like get their PhD in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and they have like, you know, they're intelligent, they understand analytically the Bhagavatam, but our spiritual master would refer to them as armchair speculators. You know, in other words, like people that are just like sitting down the armchair and just kind of like philosophizing about life, and but there's no real like practical application. I heard from one of our great spiritual teachers in our movement that he went to, after he joined our movement, became a devotee, he's an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He went back to college to get his PhD in Sanskrit, and he was also studying Asian studies. He was studying Bhagavatam and the works of Jiva Goswami, another great spiritual master in our lineage. And he explained that there's people in this Asian studies class that understand our philosophy more than most of our devotees, but they don't have a pinch of devotion. You know, they don't practice anything, and they still eat meat. They do a bunch of nonsense, but intellectually they have a mundane understanding of the philosophy. So that's not how you gain spiritual realization. This verse I quoted, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatya Shivayaragam Jnanichayada Hoitakam. By devotional service, automatically knowledge is revealed by performing devotional service. By devotional service, vairagya, or renunciation, detachment from this material world, is automatically awakened, automatically enlivened. So there's one story. Srila Prabhupada's guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there was one person who wanted to come meet with him and speak to him. And he was a little bit busy, so he told one of his disciples, tell this person to go wash the pots while he's waiting to speak to me. This person wanted to come ask some philosophical questions to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who's known as a very amazing scholar. So yeah, please tell this person to wash pots in the meantime, and I'll speak to him afterwards, you know. And so he's washing pots for Krishna in Krishna's kitchen. And afterwards, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called him in, and the person said, actually, all my answers were revealed when I was washing pots for Krishna. You know, so this is practical proof that by devotional service, knowledge is revealed. And I also have personal testimony. I'm sure all of you have personal testimony who actually take this practice very seriously. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, by reading these books, is actually devotional service. It's not just mundane intellectual understanding. It's serving Vyasadeva. It's serving the previous acharyas who worked so hard to give us this knowledge, to print these books, to translate them into English. And Krishna actually explained, actually it's not Krishna, sorry, Sanjaya, who, I'll just show you real quick if you're unfamiliar with who Sanjaya is. So the Bhagavad Gita was actually spoken. Oh, the picture's not in here. Sorry, anyways, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna, but it was narrated. The reason why we have it is because a person named Sanjaya, through mystic yoga and meditation, was able to perceive the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna from a long distance away, from many miles away. Sanjaya, yes, okay, there we go. This is Sanjaya here. Everybody see here? He's speaking to a king named Dhritarashtra. So Sanjaya was not present while Krishna was speaking. He was many miles away, but through his mystic yogic meditation, he was able to hear and perceive the conversation, and he was speaking to the king. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Sanjaya is explaining that whoever studies this Bhagavad Gita, that actually worships Krishna through his intelligence. So in the same way, whoever studies the Srimad Bhagavatam goes deeper into a worship of Krishna. The Bhagavatam is actually considered a deity of Krishna. Starting from, there's 12 cantos. The first and second canto are considered his lotus feet, and each progressive canto goes up to his body until you get to the 10th canto, which is considered his lotus face. And the Bhagavatam explains systematically, very analytically, how to become detached from material elements. And it gives many examples of people who are on the path of self-realization, who came across obstacles, who fell down from the path, who got distracted, what they did to get back on the path, and how they achieved success and went back to the spiritual world. And it all begins from a story of a Greek king who actually ruled the earth for many years, and he got cursed to die within 7 days. So he was like, dang, I gotta die within 7 days. What do I do? And it actually explains in Srimad Bhagavatam that he had the ability to counter curse the person who cursed him and get rid of this curse. But he understood that everything happens for a reason. Nothing happens by chance. So he took this as a divine opportunity. Obviously, Krishna wants to teach me something here. Krishna set up this opportunity for me to get cursed to die within 7 days. So I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to just try to enjoy my senses for the last 7 days and whatever. He actually, what he did was he renounced his kingdom right away. He said, my dear wife, it's nice knowing you. Children, very nice knowing you. He made sure everything was set up in such a way that his family could continue and everything like that. His kingdom can continue. But he said, basically, I'm out of here. You can imagine if he ruled the world, he had all these riches, all these people serving him, all these people worshiping him. He completely detached himself, didn't look back, went to the bank of the Ganges, which is actually a very sacred river, and he was trying to inquire who is the greatest spiritually enlightened personality that I can ask questions. And a great sage named Shukadeva Goswami, it's a long story, I'm just trying to make it brief and give you the essence of it. A great sage named Shukadeva Goswami came, and he was elected amongst all these most powerful enlightened beings in the universe. Shukadeva Goswami was going to be the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what this whole thing is, all 12 cantos, which is divided into 18 books, is a conversation between this king that's supposed to die within 7 days and the most enlightened spiritual personality on the planet at that time, 5,000 years ago. And so Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Maharaj Parikshit what he needs to do in his last 7 days of life to achieve full self-realization and perfection and go back to Godhead. And this is very relevant for all of us, because I know we don't like to hear it, but we're all going to die. I'm going to die, and everybody you know is going to die, and we see it happen all the time. This is just a reality. And we have to actually face this reality that we can go at any time. You know, I can die tonight. I can die tomorrow. I can die in 100 years from now. I'm not sure, but I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity of understanding this conversation between these two enlightened beings to prepare my consciousness, what I have to do to attain self-realization, just like this great king did. And so it's very interesting. It goes into depth. The second part of the Srimad Bhagavatam explains the universal form of Krishna. To see Krishna and to have spiritual vision everywhere you go, whatever you see in this world, you can have complete spiritual vision. That's what the second part of the Bhagavatam explains in depth. And it's a huge book. It goes in depth how to see everything spiritually. The third canto, Kapila Dev, another incarnation of Krishna, explains analytically how this material world was created, from the elements to time, every second, every atom. And the reason why it explains this is to help us become detached from these elements. It breaks it down very scientifically, very analytically, very intense, actually. It's 2 volumes, third canto is 2 huge volumes like this big. And so every canto is like that. It's meant to progressively help you become detached from matter and more attached to spiritual realization. I'm not sure what time I'm supposed to stop. I'm supposed to stop now?
You can keep going because we're shot already.
Am I boring everyone?
No. It was pretty late. You can just keep on going. So.
Okay. Well, at this point, I'll ask if there's any questions. If not, I can continue speaking on the Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam can be spoken for the rest of eternity. Actually, one of the forms of Krishna, his name is Sheshanag. He's actually like a snake form. Says he has unlimited heads. And through his unlimited heads, he's been trying to glorify Krishna for all of eternity, and he still hasn't been able to finish his glorification of Krishna, which is pretty far. Oh, yes.
So, if our purpose is to detach or transcend our physical embodiment and our senses in this material world, why are we here in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Why are we here in this material?
Why are we here? Are we trying to transcend and leave our bodies?
Mm-hmm. So that's actually the best question, and that's what everybody asks, obviously, coming to Bhakti Yoga, and only an intelligent person will actually come to that platform of asking that question. Unfortunately, most people don't even ask that question, which for me, that's why I got into this movement, because I had that question. Why am I here in the first place? Like, why do I exist? Why am I human? Why do some people take birth as a human and some take birth as a turkey or a chicken? Or like, how does that happen? You know, like, where did this all come from? So in the Vedic literature, there's a verse called it says Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that we have a human form of life, it's time to inquire, why are we here? What are we doing here? You know, what is this? It's so bizarre. You know, there's a huge blazing ball of fire called the sun just floating in the sky. You know, there's oxygen. You know, if you just think about life, it is so incredible and so amazing. And to just not even think like, where did it all come from? Seems to me very bizarre that some people don't question this. But to get to your question, it's very complex, but the Vedic scriptures actually explain this in great detail. And a general understanding, to make it very simplified, the great teachers in our movement explain that we were once in the spiritual realm. You know, the souls come from a spiritual realm. But due to I'm going to use different words. Some of our previous acharyas, Srila Prabhupada uses the word envy, but he uses it in a different context that maybe we're used to in our, because English is our native language. But basically, the desire to become the controller and the enjoyer is why we're here. And I'll explain what this means. So Krishna is the supreme source of everything. He's the supreme personality of Godhead. He's the supreme controller and the supreme enjoyer. That's the function of God. And we are parts and parcels of that supreme person. We are just like, for example, the sun has millions, billions, unlimited molecular sun rays. There's molecules of sun in the sun rays, but there's the source. The sun is the source. So we're those little molecules in comparison to Krishna. We're the Jiva Atma. When the Jiva Atma doesn't want to serve his original function as a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna actually creates this material realm, this material reality, the material world, for us to come and imitate the Supreme Controller and the Supreme Enjoyer. And so we're like, it's almost like a video game that we're playing. It's like this, you ever played The Sims? That game, The Sims? You get a little character and you move around, you got to get a job and eat, stuff like that. So it's like kind of like that. We're almost like in a video game, and it's called the God Project. We're all trying to be little gods, little lords of everything we purvey. So that's the simplified version that Srila Prabhupada and some of the other Acharya, mainly Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, would present, because he was preaching to, or he was sharing the knowledge to a Western audience that was mainly, from a Catholic or Christian background. So he was trying to explain that perspective so that they can understand it. He even says that one book, John Milton, Paradise Lost. Is anybody familiar with that book? It explains how Lucifer was an angel in heaven, and he envied God. And there's a famous verse in that book where it says, I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven. So he was an angel. He came, he fell down into a hellish situation and he became the devil. That was Lucifer. So that's what that book's about. So Prabhupada says that book from John Milton gives a good depiction of the conditioned soul in this material world. We are pure souls. Eternally, we're pure souls. But in the spiritual world, we are serving our original pure spiritual function. We come here, we become covered by our material false ego, our material body. We're still pure souls, but we're covered, just like a diamond could be covered with mud and trash and whatever. But that purity of the diamond is still there if you uncover it. But the reason why we are here is because we want to be the supreme enjoyer. And as long as that propensity is there, self-realization becomes a very difficult task, actually. So we have to become freed from that propensity. The original propensity of the soul is to serve Krishna. And because every soul is a part of Krishna, our eternal function is to serve everybody. And the way we serve each individual depends on our relationship with them. Like we serve devotees, we serve people that are serving Krishna in various ways. But if we meet someone who's not yet a practicing devotee of Krishna, we serve them by giving them knowledge, by somehow connecting them to the spiritual path. So that's originally why we came here, is because we want to be God. There is a more complex understanding and explanation of the topic. And I can after the talk, I can refer to you certain books you can read. It's very complex and philosophical. It's just like physics, if you don't have like a basic understanding of like math, trigonometry, etc., or a scientific understanding, it may be very difficult to understand physics on like a university point of view. So what I just explained was like a very basic level, but it is more complex, and the Vedic literature does explain that in detail, but it does take a little bit of intelligence, and you have to read it and study it a little bit more. But I can tell you about the books that do talk about that. It is a very complex subject. but it does explain there. The knowledge is there. I hope that was satisfying. And like I said, I can share the books too with you after. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, yes.
I think it's okay to not know, and I think that's where for me, that's where a lot of surrender. Because sometimes, I'm always using Uber as an analogy. You know, we're driving around in our vehicle, our body vehicle.
Mhm.
I'm driving around like I drive around in Uber. I don't know the next passenger that's gonna ping my app and say I need a ride. I just blindly follow the app, and that says he's gonna be on the right, and I pick him up and I take him, and I don't know where I'm taking him. And a lot of people say, aren't you afraid to be out there when, you know, at night, you drive at night, you know? Oh, can't scare me, I teach junior high, you know. So, you know, I go, yeah, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know who I'm gonna pick up, I don't know where they're going, I don't know what their business is, but I just do it. And then our body vehicle, for me, this is how it is for me where I am now. I mean, I'm not Krishna conscious or what. Where I am is that my body is my vehicle. And I go from here, and then I go over there, and then I go over there. And I know, because I reality checked myself, that my heart rather be a servant to good than a ruler of evil, right? I didn't come here to be powerful. And I want to help people, you know, to the best of my ability, to do good to the best of my ability. I want to follow, you know, just follow that instinct and let spirit be my guide. And maybe I'm here today, and maybe I'm over there, and then the next day I'm over there, and somehow it seems to be a perfect hit every time. And I gotta say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing, and I have to let that be okay. So when I come in the mornings, you know, for Mangala Arati, I'm just going, I totally surrender because I don't know what's gonna happen today. I really don't know where I'm gonna go. Like, you know, I don't know when I'm gonna die. I don't know when my vehicle is gonna crash, you know? At any turn, there could be a 18-wheeler headed straight for my car, and that could be the end of my car, end of me. And I'm just willing to let it go and just be where I am and just say, well, it is, I guess, what is it, the Bhagavad Gita says, as it is that what it says? Or what is the word?
As it is.
As it is, yeah. So as it is, you know? And I'm not, and that's where I am. And so I'm okay. And also, like, well, what I hear in here a lot, everywhere I go, is, oh, you know, isn't it awful to have this vehicle, this body, we're trapped in it. And I'm going, well, I consider the vehicle, I consider my body like a vehicle. And you could say, oh, it's really awful to have a vehicle. But in a way, if you have a car, you get more done. I mean, in a different sort of way. So in a way, you know, you gotta, on the strain of having a vehicle, you gotta buy oil for it, you gotta eat, you gotta change the tires, you gotta do all of it, you gotta pay the insurance. All the expenses of having this body. But I'm kind of glad to have one. You know, I'm kind of glad to have a vehicle.
It almost sounds like your explanation is like we're here as a punishment because we want to enjoy and control. Like,
Yeah,
it's like a punishment, like we're here.
I don't
like,
think it's a punishment.
Well, that's what the explanation
yeah.
is. It's
And
almost
I
like,
hear that all the time.
You're already trying, you're in timeout, you're going down to the basement, you know what I'm
I
saying?
said I don't quite
Let-
see it as a punishment
Let me-
necessarily.
Let me share one thing. As that was a very awesome point of view, and that was like more of an enlightened point of view.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, I speak to a lot of people every day because I share these books and stuff like that. And I'm sure you've met a lot of people that they don't have that point of view necessarily.
Everybody's got
Yeah,
their own journey, I guess.
everyone's got their own journey. The thing is we do teach that there is such thing as reincarnation.
Yeah.
You know, so we weren't always in such a blissful, happy bubble, imagine being a lizard and being, fearing for your life at every moment. And it's like a dog eat dog world. There's predators out there. Every animal is, you don't see a peaceful bird ever. You see a bird that's beautiful, sounds beautiful, looks beautiful.
Fighting with all the other birds.
But if you just watch him, he's never peaceful. He's always looking around. He's scared of death. And what about the people that get, have been tortured to death in the past?
Yes.
Babies that get aborted, that have to suffer in the womb. I mean, yeah, we may be having an okay life. Like I'm pretty happy, I'm doing good. But what about all the people that aren't doing good,
Right.
that are
That's why I
diseased?
started,
Yeah, and that's based on karma. Unfortunately, there are laws of karma. There's laws of reincarnation. So yeah, you seem like you have good karma. You have good intelligence. God is like guiding you in a good way, and that's very beautiful. A lot of people are not that fortunate, unfortunately, and possibly we weren't that fortunate in previous lives. So the fact that, in our original nature is to be with Krishna in the spiritual world, to have a body that's eternally blissful beyond your intellectual knowledge. The soul is blissful, playing with Krishna, eating with Krishna. The fact that we're not with Krishna right now, as devotees of Krishna, we say, dang, that's a bummer because we want to be with Krishna. But you can be with Krishna
Right.
if you practice Krishna consciousness. Exactly.
We can now, we don't have to wait. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, in my
And
opinion.
No, that's not
So, I
only
mean,
your
it's like
opinion.
we have
That's
to die to see it. In my opinion.
that's not what we say. Bhakti Yoga says you can realize Krishna right now. You can realize Krishna today, but it does take practice to keep that consciousness consistent. So yes, the body is beautiful because it's a temple for the soul. It is a vehicle for the soul. So in that sense, we are fortunate. But the body also, from another perspective, we have to see the full spectrum. We're looking at the positive perspective. The body is a vehicle for the soul. The body is the temple. There are beautiful things in this world. We can do a lot with this body. We can do a lot of good things for other people. We can serve God with this body. From another perspective, someone who's less fortunate and doesn't have that spiritual consciousness, this body is the source of disease, of death, and suffering. That is just a fact. We can argue against it, but objectively speaking, that is the way the world does work.
And that's
And-
really their karma that they're burning off.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
They're burning off
So-
something.
So the fact that we have good karma and we're doing good, we should be very, very happy with that and pleased and grateful that Krishna blessed us in such a way. But the more you go deeper into transcendental knowledge and transcendental realization, you'll understand that actually this body is temporary, and I'm originally having an eternal spiritual body in the spiritual realm. That gives much more happiness and much more pleasure to me as a soul. So it's your choice. If you want to stay here in the material world, you can do that also. You can also go back to the spiritual world. We're not forcing anyone, but there are different options there. So we're just giving people options. That's all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sometimes though, I think maybe a spirit being says, maybe Krishna says, come back and do something, so we take a body. We say, okay, we take a body and do it.
That does happen, and I mentioned that too. Like the pure spiritual souls, they sometimes come to this material world. Seems like they have a material body and are functioning in a material way, but it's actually to serve humanity and it's actually to enlighten people. So yeah, that does exist. It's like the concept of the bodhisattva. Also in like Buddhism, they have that concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Do we at any point return like completely to the source where there's absolutely no separation? Like everything came, what's the term? The source from which everything came and everything will return. Is that real? Will everything go to the source?
Yeah. I mean, every soul, say everything because there is a distinction between material energy and spiritual energy. Just like, this microphone is made of material elements.
It's made of
So-
atoms, which is made of Krishna.
Yes, but there's also a distinction between Krishna's material energy and Krishna's spiritual energy. Krishna explains that in the Bhagavad Gita. But yeah, ultimately every soul will attain full enlightenment, where you can actually hang out with Krishna. Like you're eating this plate with us, but you could be hanging out with Krishna and his like cowherd boys, and the cows in the spiritual world eating with Krishna, and talking to Krishna face to face. You can ask him that question, So that's like how much of a reality it is. And again, it's not just blind faith or blind belief. They're giving you a process where you can actually have full understanding of that. So it's up to us if we want to see that reality or not. Does that make sense?
I hope so.
Okay.
I'll figure it
Yeah. Try it out. See if it works. I see you got the japa back, so go deep into the chanting.
out. Oh,
Okay.
I have one more question.
Okay,
that I've been
sure.
Thinking about a couple times today.
Sure.
Is there any good techniques to ground you in the Maha Mantra? Like something I did before it was I got some grapes, and so I was chanting the Maha Mantra while trying to put the energy of that mantra into the grapes, and so that was a good place for me to ground the Maha Mantra. So I wasn't really thinking of anything else. I was just put the energy into the grapes. Is there any other sort of ways to ground yourself in that technique?
Yeah.
Because I find myself just going all over the place.
The teacher who wrote the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali, one of the acharyas who was living thousands of years ago, he wrote the Yoga Sutras, and he explains that when you engage 3 or more of your senses in meditation, it fixes your mind more. So with the japa, we're engaging our sense of touch, touching the tulsi mala, the japa beads. Then we're engaging our voice, our tongue in chanting, and our ears in listening. So we're engaging 3 senses. And our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, would just say that your ear is here, your mouth is here, and the mantra just goes in the ear, So a lot of times I'm meditating on that I'm pushing the mantra in my ear. It's just a little technique. But what's very powerful is I'm not sure how far do you live from the temple?
10-minute bike ride.
10-minute bike ride. Okay. What time do you wake up in the morning?
Today was 11:30, so it's not good right now.
Okay.
Usually 5 in the morning is ideal.
So there's something called the Brahma Muhurta. It's an hour and a half before sunrise. That's actually the most conducive time for spiritual activity. So if you come in the morning time, so you ever been a Mangalarti at 5 a.m.? It's really awesome. You should come sometime. You should come tomorrow. Come tomorrow, dude. I'll be here.
I know.
My sleep schedule is really bad, and I don't have a bike.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
The
No
sleep
problem.
schedule's no problem. Not
Well,
having a bike.
even if you don't make it to the temple, if you try to wake up early, take a shower, get clean, and sit in a place where there's no distractions, no phones, and just chant very attentively. Just try your best.
Yeah.
But waking up early really helps. I notice when I try to chant my rounds in the afternoon, it becomes more difficult. It takes me all day to chant my rounds. Do it in the morning. I got all my 16 done. It's blissful. I'm happy. It was good. Good job. Jai, Haribol. Oh, okay. Hare Krishna, Haribol.